Hello, my name is Ayram Bashan, and welcome to another beautiful edition of Star Woman Show. Today we're going to be looking at a very interesting and very accomplished personality. Take it like we're journeying to the promised land, Israel, and we have the wonderful company of Dr. Michal Sela. She is an Israeli diplomat who is passing through the country. She's willing to share a lot of her knowledge, wealth of expertise with us. The good thing about that is she's passionate about women empowerment. She prefers describing it as women leadership. And indeed, she herself is in the center of it all, being a woman. And so today we're going to be hearing from and watching a woman of 20 years of experience in senior management in higher education institutions and women organizations. She's been leading women empowerment training, especially in the NGO management sector. She herself also is very learned, has a first degree in dentistry, if I should say so, but decided to take on the path of supporting women, helping women find their voice. She's held a number of leadership positions as an executive director of Israel Women's Network. She herself has also been chief director of Women's Lobby in Israel. I mean, I can go on, but she's very, very seasoned speaker, trainer. Indeed, she's been in the country meeting the Women Caucus in Parliament. She's also been having series of high-level discussions, dialogue with the gender minister and a few other high-profile politicians, essentially how she can impact her skills in the area of women leadership, entrepreneurship, development, and so on and so forth. So like we do, is to get into her beautiful brain and to get all the nuggets of lessons, experiences, the wealth of it to impact us. We also want to know what happens in Israel, how different is their story from ours. And it's really interesting to know that Israelis have been leading the forefront when it comes to global entrepreneurship. They are a classic example of wealth creation, the possibility of creating wealth not only in their country but across the globe. But we only hear of men leading that great story. Where are the Israeli women in this whole story? It will be great to share. So take a back seat, enjoy it as we ride on this conversation. So Dr. Michal Sela, welcome to Star Woman Show.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
I'm great, thank you.
Awesome. It's your first time, you told me, in Ghana.
Yes, just a small correction. I'm not a diplomat, but I am here on behalf of the Israeli embassy and on behalf of Mashab, which is the Israeli Agency for Development Cooperation. So I am here on behalf of this diplomatic agency.
Awesome.
So it's my first time here and I'm very, very delighted, and I was looking forward to coming here to Ghana.
Prior to coming, what was your impression of this country and what has changed or what has been validated?
Well, I have been to Liberia about a year ago, and a lot of people told me their things about Ghana and how Ghana was much more developed, and I find it, I find it true. And I also find the people here, well, first of all, everyone was so nice to me, and also it's been the third group I'm leading this 2 weeks, and the women are so enthusiastic about making change in their lives and in their communities and they're really, and I'm sure they're going to do it. So this is something that I found, which was really exciting for me to see.
And so what's your mission? What brings you to Ghana?
Well, what I do is, you quoted my resume, and it's true. For the last 3 years, I haven't been managing organizations or anything. I just thought, how can I take all the knowledge that I have and do something with it in favor of communities that need that? So that's what I'm doing. I've been to Liberia, to North Uganda, to the refugee camps, South Sudanese refugee camps. I've been to India. And I'm doing this kind of work, which is actually leadership and community engagement and community mobilizations, people taking back the control over their life, no matter what kind of difficulties they faced, which can be, wars, refugees, whatever. I've also been working with Syrian refugees in Germany. So, how you gain back control, how you gain back your community coherence, how you build community infrastructures again after such a disaster, and you do it with natural leaders. So it's just a matter of finding them and helping them to just translate their ideas into actions. And this is what I'm really, it's not just that I'm enthusiastic about it, I'm moved about it. I'm moved when I see this happening. I really get excited.
And it looks like you're infecting me. I like the phrase you kept choosing, to gain back control. And you're not looking just at the individual level, but even communities. But for your experiences, you've been working with communities that have been devastated by wars and strikes based on the countries you have visited. But for Ghana, our story is not necessarily the same. So what kind of control are you hoping that we can gain in Ghana? Well,
working in Ghana is quite similar to working in Israel. And that is, people's regular behavior is complaining that this is not working and this is not working, and the moment you really get it, that if things are not working, complaining does nothing, but it's actually preparing a plan and doing something about it, and that nobody comes to save you, not the government, not the municipality. It's in your hands to impact your community. And in Ghana, the same in Israel, as if you're far away from the capital city or whatever, it becomes harder. And there you need more community strength and more community mobilization and more leadership to actually cause things to happen. So this is very similar to what I do in Israel.
Interesting. So what specifically, for instance, have you been telling the women that you've been interacting with over the few days you've been in the country? I'm still intrigued by this mission of yours.
I ask questions and then I send them to search. For example, today in my group we looked at gender inequalities in health, education, power and economics. So they need to look at, do you have gender inequalities in these areas and how do they look like? And they may look like the same as they look like in Israel, and they may not. And so it's a mutual research. But what I'm gaining, what I'm trying to cause is the curiosity to start looking, to look for that data, to see what's happening, to look at data in gender inequality spectacles. And I'm learning a lot because it doesn't look the same in Israel or in Liberia or in India. It doesn't look the same. It's a global phenomenon, but it's not the same. Well, you know, so for example, all the thing about inheritance laws, or about being able to buy assets on your name and land on your name, it is different. In Israel, there are some cultures that yet, by law, it's illegal, but their tradition also continues these kind of
which is prevent women from acquiring assets in Israel.
Yes. Well, the tradition doesn't allow it. It's not that if you go to the court, you won't be able to do it, because the law is pretty equal about that. But there are traditions that disable certain women from doing that. So in these questions, there are similarities and there are, of course, dissimilarities. So I keep learning all the time, and this is so interesting.
We can relate in some ways that sometimes even what the law grants us as rights, sometimes when we come to the cultural setting, it's a different story altogether, and that is where community is enacted. Indeed, that is the beginning of the individual base. So it becomes even more difficult to be able to enforce those rights. But I'm also interested in what is dissimilar between, for instance, the Ghanaian women and Israeli women. What are some of the things you have found as distinctly different between us?
Okay, so I think in Israel, on the whole, a lot of the things that are, a lot of pressures that are put on women to get married, to have children, they also exist in Israel, but sometimes it's less politically correct to say them. But the pressures are there. So you can see that in, for example, in my social economic group, women have 3 kids. And in different socioeconomic groups or ethnics or whatever, they have 6 to 7 kids. And so you see that the pressure does exist, but not in every group. It is actually said. And I think here it is more blunt. People say to you that they expect you to get married, and your mother tells you, and your aunt, and everyone. So I think it's similar, and again, it's dissimilar. So it's a more elegant in Israel.
Okay, so now let's look at legislation, for instance. I don't know if you've had enough time to look at the laws we have, for instance, and how gender empowering and neutral they are compared with Israel. Maybe you can, for what you have observed in this relatively short period you've been here.
Well, you know, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not expert on the Ghanaian law. We have discussed yesterday with a parliamentarian the affirmative action bill, which hasn't passed yet. So I can tell you that in Israel we have passed, and it was...
So Israel has an affirmative law?
It has an affirmative law. It also has an affirmative law on women in boards of directors of governmental companies. They should be at least 30%. And the laws are enforced also. And we also have an anti-harassment, a sexual harassment law, which is different than the sexual abuse and law. And these laws are enforced. And I can tell you, for example, about the sexual harassment law, which was, I think it was 1998 when it was approved. And it took, you know, it took 20 years until now with the Me Too movement that it is really accelerated, and there are many lawsuits, and it's really, it takes a lot of time.
So for you in your work with women, in empowering women, if there's one thing perhaps you then would like to see in Ghana is for our affirmative bill to be passed into law.
I think it's really important.
Okay, maybe it's a good time for us to take a break. When we return, it would interest you to know that this very powerful woman we're talking to started off as a dentist. What happened? She has to tell us. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Star Woman Show. My name is Ayram Pashan, and I'm here having a great conversation with one of Israel's celebrated women achievers, Dr. Michal Sela, who is leading the front, championing women empowerment, desiring to see more women at the forefront of decision making, any aspect of power. She believes women must be at that table, and I'm really excited for what she's been sharing with us already. But welcome back, you too. So what happened? You started off as a dentist. Was it a misplaced career choice, or you discovered another you? Tell us.
Well, I must say that my father brought me up to be economically independent. So being a dentist was part of it. But the other part was that he was a dentist too, and my uncle was a dentist, and we had, it was like family thing to be a dentist. And I think I know I was 33 when it took me a few years. I finished studying and I practiced dentistry for 6 years, but I was miserable. And I had to change. I had to re-choose. And when I told everyone that I don't want to be a dentist anymore, it was a family panic.
You were breaking the rule.
Yes, and I was married at that time, and my husband was also in a panic, and I had to, just prove everyone that it's going to be great.
So from dentistry, where did you go to?
At that time, because I wasn't fulfilled in dentistry, I used to volunteer in a rape crisis center. Wow. So I started working there. It was a third of my salary, but I loved going to work. I loved what I did. I worked 24/7, escorting women to the hospital. And also I was in charge of all the volunteers and their training and everything. I really loved it. And from there I just went up. I did another master's degree. I did a degree in management of NGOs. And from there when dealing with rape was too much for me after 5 years, I became...
What was too much about that?
It was dealing all the time with human evilness. You can understand earthquake or all kinds of disasters, but when you just listen to stories about people being really, I don't know, evil. I have no other word. It is really. I really felt that I'm at the edge of not trusting people. So I just had to, sort of balance my life again with difficult stories and nice stories.
So what was a nice story you found?
So I became the Dean of Student Affairs.
Into academia.
Yes, and I started working with students. But I did meaningful things. So from time to time, I dealt with a student that was raped, and we had to help her. But, but they also got married, and I worked with students with disabilities. We built a marvelous support center for students with disabilities. So I started doing a lot of social things inside the academia with students, with lecturers, which were meaningful.
So, trying to compare pulling a bad tooth.
No.
And helping people who are victims of abuse and all of that. You found that to be more fulfilling. What is the lesson in that? For women out there who are thinking they're saddled with a career choice, perhaps imposed on them, or perhaps they thought through it and at some point believed that was the thing, but they can't find their way around that. What is the lesson in there?
Well, you know, I can't talk for all other women, but I can say for myself that I've decided not to stay where I'm miserable. And it goes for my career, and it also goes for my marriage. It was unhappy, so we broke it, and I have a wonderful husband now, and I love him. So I just don't settle for being miserable or being unhappy.
Don't settle for being miserable. Star woman.
Yes.
I guess even though she's saying it for herself, it's a lesson you might want to also adapt to, that if you find yourself at any point and you're not happy, you can always reverse.
Don't be afraid. I mean, look at your choices. Remember how strong you are. Remember your strengths. Do the mapping. That's what we are doing in this training. We're looking at ourselves. We're looking at what we're good at. We're looking who we know and mapping your connections. And you know, you start, and also dare to dream, because people don't dare to dream. Then you can dream, and then you can see, well, how can I do it?
But if you're in an environment where oftentimes you are put down, you're made to believe it's near impossible. I mean, not to talk about the economic situation, your own intellectual capacity, then your net worth. What is possible for you to even begin to dream?
You can dream small dreams and fulfill them and be empowered by that. You
So
know?
start dreaming small.
Well, you can dream a very big dream, but then you actually make an action plan. And each step is, then you can see that each step is something which is doable. And you start doing it. I want to be a nurse. Okay. Now, for that, I need to study. Did I finish my, what do you call them, SAT? What do you call them?
SHS, so that you had
So
a strong
then
sound.
you need to see what you need to do to go to the nursing. How do you get the money? You make a plan. And you make it doable.
Make it doable. Yeah. So you make a plan. Dream big, and still start small, and put in some plans.
Yes.
And think through, map it out, what is doable.
Exactly.
And then take off.
And then you look for scholarships, and then you look for opportunities. You know, if you don't dream, it's just, you know, for me, it's suffocating.
It is. So we have to be dreaming, even if it won't come to pass. Awesome. I feel like taking a break and to start dreaming, but I don't have that luxury, so I have to continue. But I like that. It's quite empowering to continue dreaming. What can we do without dreams? But talking about that, do you have any political ambitions? Because you seem to be working with women politicians and you're teaching them strategies. Tell me about your own political ambitions, and then perhaps you share with us what are some of the strategies you've been
I'm
impacting?
just flirting with the idea. I'm, you know, it's embarrassing to say, but this dream is really frightening for me.
Israel gave us Golda Meir. I can't forget that.
I know.
And so we can have another Golda Meir in you.
I know. I'm flirting with the idea all the time. It's scary.
To become
That's
one day the premier.
I think.
Wow.
I think the world really needs women leaders. Really, that's what the world needs. I truly believe that. And women that are not afraid of putting their feminine side, which I mean doing the things in a different way. That's what I mean by the feminine way. Doing it differently. And so women that are not afraid of that.
So you've touched on a very interesting, well, at least you've given us a hint. We're likely to be seeing her very soon, even if not very, very soon now, but at least some few years to come. She's likely to be leading Israel as the top political leader. Is that a prophecy or is it a dream to come to pass? I see you trying to catch your breath.
It's a dream.
Oh,
I must.
we endorse it. We endorse it. But you touched on a very interesting but also sensitive issue, women leaders. Oftentimes the impression is that women are not good leaders. They are too emotional. They are too unstable, unreliable. They come into office with a whole baggage of family, children crawling into the office, husband issues, kitchen issues, and we can't trust them with basic management issues, let alone entrusting a whole nation into their hands. What do you think of that?
To be honest, I haven't seen that. I don't think that if a woman cries, it means that something, I don't see anything wrong about that. Women politicians in Israel, we have 3 ministers now, but we have quite a few members of parliament. They work so hard. They lead, they are thought leaders in different areas. They all branded themselves as leading something, and they actually do it.
I want to know, what do women bring to the table when they lead? What is different about them?
Well, in my opinion, women bring different language, different way of doing things. I think women are, you can see it in corporate organizations where women are CEOs. They bring more teamwork, more something flatter than this hierarchical thing, more collaborations. It's also, there is a lot of research about that, and I love that. It's a different language. It's a less powerful language. Yes.
So if it's less powerful, it's
not
collaborative.
Less powerful. Powerful is not the right
that's
word.
not the word, but I think I get it though. But as a
machoistic way of doing things.
Okay, so bringing more people on board rather than this competitive approach of just one big guy and then everybody else flattens out. That should be winning, but how come when we look at the scope of leadership across the globe, we are not seeing more women leading?
Because when you are a minority, when you are, like in Israel, we have 3 women ministers now, and I don't know how many, more than 10, 15 or something men. You are a minority, so you have to adapt to the way the majority does things, to the language, to the norms, to the behaviors. It's difficult. Imagine that you are a single CFO in a company or CFO in a company, and all your colleagues are men. It's difficult to, when they do things in a certain way, to say to all of them, let's do it differently. What does happen is once you have about 15%, 20%, some researchers even say 30% women on board, then you can change the language, then you can change the behavior, but you can't do it on your own.
Which means it is critical for women leaders to desire and work towards getting more women climb up for their own survival.
Exactly.
Than do it alone.
Exactly. And there comes the issue of sisterhood, which we're not so good at, because we should have helped women to achieve and to come on board and everything you said. But then we start to identify with the party and with the issues and
with the men.
And with the men, and that divides us. And that has been going on,
for centuries.
For centuries.
So for you, who's been working in this field for some time now, and you have actually been the chief director of Women's Lobby in Israel. I mean, that's a very powerful group. I can imagine being the head of that. What sort of strategies are working that we can use to overcome this very daunting hurdle of breaking this glass?
So the strategies that the Minister of Gender did in bringing women
That is in
MPs.
Israel?
No.
Or in Ghana?
That's what happened the last weekend. She brought women MPs together, and they all talked about what is difficult about being a woman MP. And you know, we could see that they're all dealing with the same issues, and they're
Irrespective of their political...
No, irrespective of that, irrespective of where they come from, irrespective of anything. And you start becoming friends, and you start becoming a resource to one another. And you need to create sisterhood. It doesn't go by itself just because we are both women. We need to create platforms that actually help it to develop. So in Israel, we have a lot of coalitions, women's organizations, coalitions. And it's difficult, like 15 organizations sitting together, thinking how we'll get money for the coalition, what can the coalition bring us that we can't do alone, how can it not be competitive?
And is it working?
It's working. It's working, and coalitions can do, you know that, more than one organization does. If we write a petition to the government about something, it's much stronger when a coalition writes it.
Such an uphill task. We've had a number of these in our country, but if we're looking at the gains, maybe we haven't done badly, but if we look at how much more we need to cover, then sometimes it can be very disturbing, or if you don't take care, you become pessimistic about this whole thing about women leadership, empowerment, and all of that. But let's look at another subject you're very interested in, which is entrepreneurship. And like I said in my intro, when it comes to global entrepreneurship, I mean, Israel is a towering example.
Startup nation.
Powerful.
We are called.
Exactly, a startup nation, you know, led by that enterprising spirit. But in all of that narrative, we hardly hear of Israeli women, you know, being part of this success that is being touted around. How is it playing out? Where are the women?
So, you know, I did some research on that, and women in Israel, there are few women who really dare to open their own startup, to be the founders of their startup, and they also have a lot of it's not called fundraising in startup, but it's called, you know, they actually have investors in there. So it's difficult for women to get investors interested in their startup. And this
so what I'm hearing you say, just a moment, that there's low confidence in businesses managed or even owned and run by women. Low confidence, I mean, compared with that.
I know it for sure about startup initiatives. Okay. I'm not sure about what goes with banks and loans, but I know that to get an investor invest $500,000 in your startup, the no idea, is difficult for women. Yes.
Why is it so? Because there is the other theory that women are very resourceful as entrepreneurs, and they have a better credit rating compared with men. I mean, this is known globally, even in the country. Even bankers consider women as more credit worthy. They are highly likely to pay back their loans, and so yet when it comes to startups run by women, looks like they don't have strong investor support.
I think that when we're talking about an investor giving his money away, we're talking more about what we call implicit bias. It's things that go in our heads and we're not even aware of. We see this guy and we see this woman. We do have a lot of research on that when it comes to job interviews. You see the guy, you see the woman, you trust him more.
Why?
And you don't, because this is the way we're brought up. we see in him more courage, more this, more that, and we are used to think, there is a lot of research about that. We're used to seeing him more success, more charisma, more all kinds of stuff. And we tend to actually see in women a lot of the things you said before, weakness, emotions, something unstable, what will we do when she'll have kids? So, and even if we are, like me, a feminist, I might fail this gender bias, gender implicit bias test, because we were all brought up like this, and this is what we have, like, in our minds.
In the area of entrepreneurship, how have you been impacting the women to be able to break that perception, more? Because it's like that is even the basic elementary barrier before you even get to the other issues of capacity building, access to markets, and all of that.
So in this
training,
training,
then you start behaving like the guys.
No. But in this training, we are working on how do I present my idea and how I stand in front of people, and I just, talk about it very concise, very focused, show my ability to actually do that. So
pitching.
We're talking about pitching. We're talking about short presentations, very short, powerful presentations. We're also going to work on how to write your CV in the right manner, so it really, catches the eye and all kinds of things like that.
And there are smart techniques like that.
Yes.
To be able to present oneself as the more courageous.
But I'm not working with the women on presentation just in the presentation time. Whenever they speak, they stand and they need to present their answer. So we are talking about it. We are actually exercising it for the whole training, all the time. How I present my idea, even if just now a small answer to something.
Okay, so in all of these, this is Dr. Sela who's been impacting. What have you also been learning? The Ghanaian stories. I mean, as you've been moving around in the area of leadership, empowerment, entrepreneurship, and all of that.
First of all,
just the few that have been so profound that have made an impression on you.
So first of all, the women, the MPs, they were so impressive, really. Women that want to make a change in their communities and in the lives of women in Ghana. It was really inspiring. And my two groups of women that I'm working with, they're working in their villages or wherever they work, and they want to make a difference. They want to make a change. They want things to change for women and for children. And this is inspiring. I told you that from the beginning. This is why I have this energy, because they want, and I just, this is possible, yes.
Desiring it.
Yes.
It's one thing bubbling up with the idea, but do you see possibilities in our country?
Yes. I think you're in the right direction, actually. Really.
With the whole women leadership stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Oh, so just maybe before we wrap up, I want you to look in the eye of the camera and just speak to the soul, the heart of my star women seated listening and watching you. Speak to them, leave them with something they can hold on to and make their biggest move.
I think what I wanted to say, really, I've already said. Don't compromise. Don't settle for being miserable. You deserve the best. You don't have to do anything hasty, but you can dream and you can plan and you can have an action plan, and then you can work it out. And check with your friends, check with your networking, and you'll find a way to do what you dream of doing. So this is actually what I have to say.
Thank you so much, and that's very profound. For me, my take-home has been that for the women leaders, we should think about sisterhood. We need to cultivate the space to nurture more of us, get into the space. Even if we get 30% from your presentation, we can be able to make some change. But alone, surrounded by men, it will be very or near impossible to do much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Doc. God bless you for impacting us in this very profound way. And I'm sure you have taken in a lot, just like I have. As usual, reflect on these beautiful nuggets of wisdom from our wonderful guests. You can do it. You deserve the best. Give yourself a break. Don't join your critics to criticize you. When the world is up against you, you can be your worst critic. Break from that mold and give yourself a break. Pat yourself in the back. If you have come this far, you can make it. And together, we will all be star women. Thanks for sharing your company with us, and catch you next week, same time. Bye-bye.